Before we begin, I need to warn you. This video includes real archival footage and photographs connected to violent crimes and disturbing behavior. While nothing graphic is shown, some images may still be unsettling. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, I'm Joseph. On this channel, we tell crime stories the way they were meant to be told. Slowly, clearly, and without sensationalism. Today's video contains 3 separate real cases from different decades and different countries. Before we unpack them one by one, I want you to see them together. A doctor who refused to let the dead rest. A young couple who vanished, but whose car came back. And the murder from the 1800s that resurfaced more than a century later. These are real cases, and some of the footage you're about to see is real. Our first story begins in Key West, Florida in 1931. A 54-year-old radiology technician named Carl Tanzler met a young woman who would come to define his entire life. Her name was Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos. She was 22 years old, and she was dying of tuberculosis. Carl wasn't qualified to treat tuberculosis, but he believed obsessively that he could save her. In October 1931, Maria died. Most people would grieve and eventually move on. Carl Tanzler didn't. He paid for Maria's mausoleum himself, and for 2 years he visited her remains almost every night. In 1933, Carl crossed the line that can't be uncrossed. He removed Maria's body from her mausoleum and took her home. For 7 years, Carl lived with her remains. He used wire and fabric to hold the body together, covered it with plaster to slow decay. He believed one day she would return to life. In 1940, a neighborhood boy reported seeing Carl dancing with what he believed was a giant doll. Police investigated. Carl Tanzler was charged with grave robbery, but he walked free. The statute of limitations had expired. Newspapers at the time framed the story as romance. Maria never had a choice. The next case isn't about obsession. It's about a disappearance and a car that came back without its owners. Before we move on, let me pause here for just a moment. If you're drawn to stories like this, real cases, carefully told without exaggeration, this channel is built entirely for that. We release long-form crime stories regularly, the way the original storytellers in this space did it. So if you want more cases like these, consider subscribing. The next story begins with a disappearance, but what returned raised more questions than answers. This story begins in January of 1981, outside Houston, Texas. Hunters walking through a wooded area discovered human remains, a man and a woman. There were no identifying documents, no witnesses, and very little physical evidence. For decades, the couple remained unidentified. They were simply known as John and Jane Doe, until 2021. Advances in forensic genealogy finally gave them names. They were Dean and Tina Klaus, a young married couple who had recently moved from Florida to Texas. When investigators contacted Dean's sister to tell her they had found his remains, her first response wasn't grief. It was a question. Where's the baby? At the time of their deaths, Dean and Tina had a daughter named Holly. She was less than 1 year old. No one knew what happened to her. Then something deeply unsettling came to light. After Dean stopped writing home, a religious group known as the Jesus People contacted his mother. They told her Dean had chosen to cut ties. And then, no explanation. No proof Dean was alive. Just the car. Authorities at the time dismissed missing person concerns. The case went cold. In 2022, investigators located Holly, alive. She had been adopted and raised in Oklahoma. Dean and Tina's killer has never been identified. How Holly was separated from her parents remains unclear. What we do know is this: a family vanished, a car came back, and a child survived. The final story in this video begins in the 1800s. It involves a murder so brutal that part of it remained hidden for over a century until it was uncovered in the backyard of one of the most famous naturalists in the world. Before we continue, I need to warn you, this final story contains disturbing details involving violence and human remains. Viewer discretion is advised. This story begins on March 29, 1879, in Richmond, London, England. Julia Martha Thomas was a widow in her 50s. She lived alone, and in early January of 1879, she hired a new domestic servant. Her name was Kate Webster. Kate Webster had a troubling past. She was known for lying, using false names, and committing petty crimes across England and Ireland. But nothing in her history hinted at what she was about to do. After just 2 months, Julia Thomas decided Kate wasn't suitable for the job. She gave her notice. Kate asked for 1 more month. Julia agreed. That decision would cost her life. On March 2nd, 1879, the two women argued inside the home. At some point, Kate pushed Julia down a staircase. Then, she strangled her. What followed shocked Victorian England. Kate dismembered Julia's body. She disposed of most of the remains in the River Thames, but not all of them. For weeks after the murder, Kate Webster pretended to be Julia Thomas. She wore her clothes, sold her belongings, and continued living in the house. 2 men who knew Julia personally became suspicious. They alerted police. Kate fled to Ireland, but she didn't get far. Kate Webster was arrested. She denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. On July 29, 1879, she was hanged at Wandsworth Prison. She was the second person ever executed there. And that should have been the end. But it wasn't. In 2009, a man purchased a property in Richmond, London to expand his garden. That man was Sir David Attenborough. During excavation, workers uncovered a human skull. Historians soon realized the land had once been a derelict pub, and forensic analysis confirmed the skull belonged to Julia Martha Thomas. A murder committed in 1879 resurfaced in the backyard of one of the most famous naturalists in the world 130 years later. Some stories don't end, they wait. If stories like these keep you watching until the very end, then this channel is for you. This is Unmasked Reality. We tell long-form crime stories, carefully, respectfully, and without exaggeration. If you want more videos like this, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next case.